Now let me make the warning crystal clear. If you use someone's name to get a reaction, it backfires. If you use a name hoping for validation, people can feel it. And if you use names without inner stillness, it sounds forced. This habit only works when it is supported by what you have already built: stillness in the eyes and openness in the body. Without that foundation, using a name becomes awkward. With that foundation, it becomes authority, because the name is just the vehicle. The real signal is the man delivering it. So here is a practical way to integrate it. When you meet someone, say their name once slowly and hold eye contact just long enough to let it land, then continue the interaction like normal. No extra energy, no performance. Later, if the moment fits, use their name again when you are making a point or acknowledging something they said, not to flatter, not to charm, but to anchor. And when you part, use their name one final time calmly. That is it, no overuse, just clarity. Over time, people will remember you not because you were loud, not because you were funny, but because interactions with you felt defined, and defined interactions leave an imprint. Magnetism is not about flooding people with energy, it is about precision, and naming done right is precision in human form. Now there is another habit that exposes a man faster than almost anything else. It is how he handles silence, not what he says, not how clever his words are, but what he does in the space between them. Most men are terrified of the pause. They rush to fill it, they over-explain, they talk themselves into smaller and smaller corners, and they do not realize that every rushed word is a confession that says, I am afraid of being judged, I need to prove myself, I cannot sit in uncertainty. And that fear leaks, people feel it instantly. Magnetic men are different. They do not hurry, they do not scramble for approval, they let silence exist, and they let it work for them, because the pause is not emptiness, the pause is pressure, and the man who is comfortable holding pressure quietly becomes the center of gravity in any interaction. Let me be clear, this is not about speaking less to look mysterious, it is not calculated silence, it is not playing games, it is internal certainty. When a man pauses naturally, without tension, he signals something extremely powerful: I am not afraid of your judgment, and that single signal rearranges the entire dynamic. Here is the uncomfortable truth most men do not want to hear. The reason you rush your words is not because you are enthusiastic, it is because you are afraid of how you will be perceived. If you stop, you fear the silence will expose you. But what silence actually exposes is instability. And when you remove instability, silence becomes authority. Think about leaders you instinctively respect. They do not speak in a rush, they do not fill every gap with noise, they say something, and they stop, they let the weight of their words land. That pause forces attention, not because they demand it, but because the room feels it should listen. This is why the pause is central to leadership. It is not a communication trick, it is a nervous system signal. The man who pauses is not being driven by anxiety, and anxiety is the fastest way to lose magnetism. Now bring this into attraction in both social and romantic moments. Polarity is created through contrast: fast versus slow, reactive versus grounded, nervous versus steady. When you slow down, you create contrast, and contrast creates tension, the good kind, the kind that makes people lean in because they want to know what comes next. Reactive versus grounded, uncertain versus centered, that is the contrast right there. And a man who knows how to pause creates that contrast on command. He does not mirror nervous energy, he does not chase momentum, he does not speed up just because the moment feels charged. He holds, and holding creates tension, but not awkward tension. It creates anticipatory tension, the kind that makes people lean in because they can feel something is happening beneath the surface. That is why calm men can feel so powerful. They do not broadcast their intentions, they do not rush to explain themselves, they do not over-justify their presence. Their calm suggests depth, and depth is magnetic. Now here is where most men misunderstand this habit. They think pausing means becoming passive. It does not. Pausing is active control. It is choosing when to speak instead of reacting because you feel pressure. The distinction is everything. A man who pauses before answering a question is not hesitant. He is selective. He is saying without words, I decide what comes next. And people respond to that instinctively because the man who controls the tempo controls the interaction. But to do this naturally, there is an internal shift you cannot skip. You cannot fake the pause. If you try to pause while you are panicking inside, people will feel the tension. The pause only works when your body is relaxed, when your breathing is slow, when your shoulders are dropped, and when your eyes are still. That is why this habit builds on everything that came before it. Stillness in the eyes, openness in the body. Without those, the pause feels forced. With them, the pause feels inevitable. Now think about how most men answer questions. Someone asks something simple, what do you do? What do you think about that? Where are you from? And immediately they start talking. No breath, no space, no grounding. That instant response signals one thing: I need to fill this gap. A magnetic man does something different. He breathes first, just once, then he speaks. And that one breath changes everything. It settles the nervous system. It anchors the voice. It gives weight to the response. And people feel the difference, not as an idea, but in their body. They feel it somatically, like the room just got quieter. Now let us connect this to attraction, because this is where many people finally understand it. Sexual tension does not come from constant stimulation. It comes from restraint, from what is held back, from what is not immediately revealed. A man who pauses creates space, and space allows desire to grow. He is not rushing to impress. He is not chasing validation. He is not dumping information to prove value. He trusts that his presence is enough, and that trust is attractive. That is why men who talk less but speak with intention often feel more dominant, even when they are not louder or more assertive. Their words carry gravity, because they are not diluted by urgency. But here is an important warning: silence used as a weapon repels. Cold silence, punitive silence, withholding silence, that is not power, that is insecurity pretending to be controlled. The pause we are talking about is warm, grounded, neutral, unthreatened. It does not punish, it does not withdraw, it simply allows space. And space is where people project meaning. When you give someone space, they start to fill it with their own curiosity, their own attention, their own imagination, and that projection is what creates magnetism. So let us make this practical. Here is how to integrate the pause without overthinking it. Before you respond, inhale slowly through your nose. That is it. No counting, no dramatic waiting, just one breath, then speak. And after you make a point, stop. Do not rush to add another sentence. Do not explain further unless you are invited. Let the words land. You will notice something interesting. People start responding more thoughtfully. They interrupt you less. They mirror your pace, because calm regulates the room. Now let us address the fear underneath all of this. What if I pause and people think I am awkward? That fear reveals the real issue. You are still outsourcing your self-worth to reactions. You are still letting other people decide whether you are allowed to take up time. And the moment you stop doing that, the pause stops feeling risky and starts feeling like strength. The pause only works when you are willing to risk being misunderstood, and that willingness is strength. Magnetic men are not afraid of a moment of discomfort. They understand that the comfort on the other side of discomfort is deeper, and once you experience this shift, you will never rush again, because you will feel it. The room slows down. Attention sharpens. Your words matter more, not because you change what you say, but because you change how you occupy time. Stillness in the eyes gives depth, openness in the body gives trust, the pause gives authority, and together they create a presence that does not need to announce itself. And when a man reaches that point, magnetism stops being something he tries to generate. It becomes something people feel the moment he enters the space. Most men walk into conversations already losing, not because they are boring, not because they lack value, but because they show up trying to perform. They want to be interesting, they want to say the right thing, they want to leave a good impression, and in doing so they quietly give away their power. Because the moment you try to impress, you place yourself below the person you are talking to. You turn the interaction into an audition, and auditions are never attractive. Magnetic men operate from a completely different frame. They do not try to be interesting, they are interested, but from a position of evaluation, not approval, seeking. That difference is subtle, but it changes everything. Let us dismantle a lie most men grow up believing. If I ask good questions, she will like me more. That is only half true, because curiosity without a frame is weakness. Curiosity with a frame is dominance. The man who asks questions because he is nervous feels needy. The man who asks questions because he is deciding feels grounded. Same behavior, opposite energy. And people do not respond to words, they respond to intent. Now let us expose the performance trap. Performance energy sounds like this inside your head. I hope she finds me interesting. I hope I do not mess this up. I need to say something impressive. And that energy leaks. It shows up in rushed speech and over-explaining and laughter that comes too quickly. And women feel it immediately, not consciously, but in their nervous system, because performance energy is unstable. It is trying to control outcomes. Interest energy is different. Interest says, I am curious if you are worth my attention, not cold, not arrogant, just centered. And that one internal shift flips the polarity, because now you are not chasing, you are observing. Now let us talk about curiosity, the right way. Most men here be curious, and they turn into interviewers, question after question with no direction, no grounding. That is not interest, that is validation, seeking disguised as politeness. Masculine curiosity has weight, it is selective, it is slow, it is directional. You do not ask questions to keep the conversation alive, you ask questions to reveal information, and information tells you whether to invest. That is the frame. The man is not there to entertain, he is there to observe, and here is the critical distinction. A weak man asks questions to be liked, a strong man asks questions to understand. Same sentence, different posture, different eyes, different pace, and women feel the difference instantly. Now let me warn you about a dangerous misunderstanding, because this is where a lot of people take the idea in the wrong direction. Interest does not mean softness, it does not mean friendliness, it does not mean being emotionally available on demand. Interest is focused attention without attachment, and that is exactly what makes it powerful. Because when you ask a question, and you truly listen without leaning forward like you need something, without nodding like a bobblehead, without rushing to fill the silence, you create a kind of pressure, not a hostile pressure, a calm, steady pressure, the kind that says, I am here, I am paying attention, and I do not need to chase you to stay here. And attention from a grounded man is rare, and rarity increases value. That is why so many women open up more around men who say less. Those men are not chasing depth, they are not forcing intimacy, they simply allow depth to emerge. Now let us talk about evaluation, because this is where the entire frame shifts. Most men unconsciously believe they are the one being evaluated. Does she like me? Did I say the right thing? Am I enough? And that mindset puts you in a defensive position. You start performing, you start proving, you start trying to earn something that was never yours to earn in the first place. Magnetic men reverse this quietly. They do not announce it, they do not posture, they simply ask questions that reveal alignment, not approval. Questions like, how do you usually spend your weekends? What do you value most in your life right now? What kind of people drain you? These are not small talk questions, they are filters. They are a way of learning who is in front of you and whether it fits your life. And here is the part that matters more than the question itself: the way you listen. After, you do not rush to respond, you do not immediately validate, you pause, you let her words sit, you let the moment breathe, And then if it aligns, you engage. If it does not, you do not force chemistry. That restraint is magnetic, because most men fake interest even when they are not feeling it. They over-invest early, they pretend compatibility, they rush into connection, because they are afraid of losing it. Strong men do not. They trust their standards. They do not pretend. They do not overpromise. They let reality show itself. And here is the paradox: when you stop trying to be interesting, people become more interested in you. Why? Because performance energy collapses under pressure. Interest energy creates safety, and safety allows attraction to deepen. Women are constantly evaluating emotional stability. A man who is performing feels unstable. A man who is calmly curious feels grounded. Now connect this to attraction and polarity. Sexual tension grows when a woman feels seen but not consumed, when she feels observed but not chased. Interest without hunger creates intrigue because she cannot easily read your investment level, and uncertainty paired with calm is powerful. This is why men who are not trying often attract more, not because they are indifferent, but because they are unattached. And unattached attention feels expansive, not demanding. It feels like space instead of pressure. So here is a simple internal rule that changes everything. Before you speak, ask yourself, am I trying to impress, or am I observing? That question alone will correct your energy. And if you catch yourself performing, slow down, lower your voice slightly, pause more, ask fewer questions, but make them count. And most importantly, allow silence after her answers. Silence communicates confidence. Silence says, I do not need to fill this space. And the man who does not need to fill space controls it. This is where magnetism becomes effortless. You are no longer chasing connection, you are allowing connection to qualify itself. And when a woman feels she is being chosen rather than chased, something fundamental shifts. She relaxes, she opens, she leans in emotionally, not because you tried harder, but because you stopped trying at all. Choosing interest over performance is not a trick, it is a reorientation of power. It is moving from needing approval to calmly deciding where your attention belongs. And once that switch flips, you do not go back, because you finally feel what real control feels like. So if you take nothing else from this video, remember this: magnetism is not something you add to yourself, it is something that appears when you stop leaking need. Every habit we talked about points to the same core truth. Magnetic people do not ask for permission to exist, they do not rush, they do not perform, they do not over-explain, they move through the world as if they already belong. And that is why these habits work, because most men misunderstand them. Eye contact was never about staring, it was about presence. Posture was never about looking bigger, it was about not shrinking. Using someone's name was never about being friendly, it was about psychological presence. The pause was never about silence, it was about control. And curiosity was never about impressing, it was about evaluating. Different habits, one underlying frame: I am comfortable being seen. I do not need to prove my value. I decide where my attention goes. That is the energy people feel long before they understand it. And here is the part most men miss: you do not need to practice all 5 habits at once. You do not need to become a different person. You only need to remove one thing. Stop rushing, stop filling silence, stop trying to be liked. Because the moment your nervous system slows down, people feel safe around you. The moment you stop chasing approval, people lean in. The moment your presence becomes calm and grounded, you do not need tricks, lines, or techniques. Your energy does the work. So here is my challenge to you this week: do not try to be more interesting, be more still, be more selective, be more present. Walk into a room and let your shoulders drop before you speak. Hold eye contact 1 breath longer than usual. Ask one question that actually matters, then listen without rushing to fill the space. And watch what changes. Watch how people respond when you are no longer trying to control the outcome, when you stop performing and start being steady. And if this shifted something in how you see yourself, even slightly, leave a comment with the word magnetic, not for me, but for you, as a reminder that the strongest presence is the one you do not force.